there's a language, Jagfetic. It's the ancient language of horse shepherds. This language has a tradition of Gere, Gere. It forms all or part of the phrases for anointing of the sick, and what we in healthcare call registration. It's a holy and sacred ancient word where at its root means to grow old. Or Gere is the origin of the word geriatric, geriatrics, gerontocracy, gerontology, traced back to Gere, as does registration, anointing of the sick, an important sacrament. The hypothetical source of this, is it traces back to horse shepherds, and Jagfetic is the, Greek calls it geros, old age, geros, in more Coptic Greek. In Sanskrit, it's aera, old age. Jarate, makes frail, causes to age. In Avestan, it's Yoravan, old age. In Greek, Geron. And on and on. In Armenian, it means ser, as an old man. And so, this ancient word for, anointing the sick is so prevalent across all of our languages that it's one of the irreducible functions on which you describe in the Rigitus basket of services the Holy Grail. There are ancient sacraments and there are ancient sanctions. The prophet had a vision that America would become New Atlantis, that the Berlin would fall, that Germany would be reunited, that the Iron Curtain would fall in time for the 1992 Olympics, that the United States and Europe, reunited, that the Aconter, Doctor, Shepherd traditions would ascend into the seven chivalric orders, prioritizing oaths, professional oaths, in the Jagfetic tradition, in that Messianic tradition of oaths, named Divas, where there's a legend of Messiah Divas, an ancient Jagfetic legend that we tell in our people, a Messiah of oaths, and would restore order with 7 days of the week in what we call the Divas calendar. One of these traditions traces back to Sir Henry Vane the Elder, is the Pater Francis Bacon, the first Viscount of St. Albans, is known as king in his natural life. Though he did not necessarily provide attribution to the Normans or other Jagfetic peoples that brought language from the continent to England. But he was an incredibly important character. His son, Sir Henry Vane, was also an incredibly important figure. He's credited with being author to Shakespeare, where many of those stories originate from that time, and also through a tradition of storytelling and parable making in what's described today as the matter of English. There's those that claim that he merely held the title Attorney General and Lord Chancellor of England and Vice Admiral of the Royal Navy, as if those were titles that were held by someone other than the king. Those are clearly the titles of the king. Sir Henry Vane was the last martyr in 1662. You cannot kill the king and call him Attorney General. There are those seen, this father and son group is developing the scientific method, the Baconian method. They certainly did. That's where the evidence is. They also were author to Shakespeare, which is where the evidence is. Which evidence is different than, some of the false covenant. Which is something I elaborate in my other work. Bacon is the father of empiricism, English empiricism. There are others like Henry II, Henry III. They're also important figures. But the Baconian method, the Sir Henry Vane method, father and son, were so critical in advancing science in England, where evidence showed that science traced, back to the continent. Traced down to southern riparian powers such as Genoa and Venice, more like the 12th and 13th century of the Common Era. Biographies show that Sir Henry Vane was the first recipient of the Queen's Counsel designation by Elizabeth I of England, who reserved him as her personal legal advisor a better way of describing it is that he was king. That's somehow you cut through the the stories that are written in history and the reality. A queen doesn't assign a legal advisor other than the king in the 17th century. And so that's tied together with multiple false prophecies, including stories that there were ever a King James. There wasn't a King James. There was Christianity in England. The false prophecy of Jamestown, Virginia, of which Jamestown went entirely died off. They ate the horses. They ran out of food. It was like a gold rush where people were sent in. Didn't survive. I'm descendant of one of the guys that made it. It was Sir Edward Spalding survived Jamestown and made it all the way up to the Bay Colony, what we call Boston today. And so what you see, which is so important, is this history of Sir Henry Vane, who came to America, and I elaborate on him, greatly. Is the Last Martyr, he's Christ of English, which is a proper telling where see the Church of England today is the third largest denomination of individuals the whole world over. Where did that come from? In the 16th century, there wasn't a global Church of English. He is the guy that built that Church of English. Built upon the language, he passed the first religious freedom law here in America that, basically you could choose your religion, that your mother didn't determine your religion, which is an incredibly progressive idea for the 17th century. It's not something that other religions embraced. There are multiple religions that are still ethno-religions in that old style fashion. One of the options of the Holy Grail of being an ethno-religion specified by your mother, and which is very, very antiquated for Homo sapiens, you'd say. Where Homo sapiens can get wise and choose from one of the multiple options, of which there are excellent options, of which I elaborate on in my other work. And so Sir Henry Vane is this incredibly important figure as Christ English, founding of the Church English. We talk about Atlantis American, where there's this remarkable rich tradition, where I happen to be descendant not just of Sir Edward Spalding, but of Sir Thomas Jefferson Stanage, who's a Revolutionary War hero. He actually lived in Virginia. I happen to be descendant of Sir George Berry, who his descendants include, Dr. Martha Berry Spalding is one of the first female physicians in America. She was an incredibly powerful figure in Mount Pleasant. Her husband was Edward Spalding's descendant on the cadet line, the cadet Spalding line. And the Spalding line that had that claim, to kings of England as well from before the, Vanes, happen to have girls. Dr. Martha Berry Spalding and W.J. Spalding had only girls. And so there's not a cadet line of the Spaldings. We happen to have married into them. Which, in the family tree we have John Klein Kepner, who's a 49er. He left us a gold mining diary, which was outstanding, which in no small way popularized the Oregon Trail. He was not merely a 49er, he was a 49er who got rich, wrote about it, and by divine miracle, others went to California to pursue the riches, in the kingdom that we called California. It was one of those really incredible things of explorers tend to get there first, tend to tell about it. One of my ancestors on my father's line is Baitauda, who's the most traveled man in the history of the world. Where he traveled 4 times as long of a distance as Marco Polo did, and there's multiple evidences of his work, whereas other kings who traveled less did not always get on the front lines of being able to tell their stories of their own visions, of their own divine miracles. And so, we're blessed to have the story of Batauda. There are multiple religions that recognize Batauda as a religious figure, including Islam, despite the fact that he was a horse shepherd from Lithuania. Ethnically, he was horse shepherd. He spoke in Arabic. It was one of the languages he spoke in. Incredibly influential individual. It's not a surprise that he was a person that was writing in Testament, where he was hearing individuals in the afterlife that he described as Jesus Christ and also as Muhammad. And so this story of Sir Henry Vane is so important, as is my ancestors on the Spalding line, the Berry line, the Kepner line, and the Batavian line, where there's this need for the Confessaconter. Confessaconter is an accounting system, is unification of confession, which is sacrament, and finance, of which, for individuals that, work in healthcare, there's a lot of meanings for the Confessaconter system for revelations. And it's an absolutely fascinating area of study. Revelations, with its source and evidence, is provided for by the word kel, meaning to cover, to conceal, to apocalypse. Sanskrit uses kala, hut, house, hail. Greek use kala, hut, nest, which is slightly different than their phrase kalo, which means uninjured. So it's a slightly different word, which is an important one, because it does not imply uninjured. Kala means uninjured. Kala might mean injury. The German is Kalyptin, to cover. Choline, kolos, means sheath. Kalyphos is shell, husk. The Latin, cella, a small room, storeroom, hut. The word Rome also means room, where that's we have two words with the same meaning, basically. And then Rome also happens to be male, husband, richly laced with gold or silver, king. Where Rome, room, and king come from the same word, where they describe their founder as Romulus, of which, that would be a king of the kingdom. Various stories describe it as a wolf. It wasn't a wolf. There's a real tribe and a real cadet line of individuals where the Romulus legend originates. It means kingdom, it means man, male. Ule, which is the unification, equality, and finance in our ancient language. Jagfetic. Which that's slightly contrary to Italian history. Italian as a language is only 150 years old. Italian telling of history, the idea that there's a city that's 2,600 years old, when the languages of horse shepherd people in North and Northeastern Europe, are thousands and thousands and thousands of years old, older than Sanskrit, and language can't possibly be wrong, right? So language isn't wrong. Languages are true. When you see a 5,000-year-old word, you should yield. And so, that this is a critical tenet in understanding, Confessaconter, is that, there's ancient horse shepherd words that help lead us to understanding revelations. In Irish, they use the word cule, meaning cellar, to hide. In Middle Irish, it also means defense and shelter. In Gothic, holster, as in covering, a sound alike with that is a holster, we describe, with, cowboys and bandits having a holster. The English, helster, which is a lurking hole, a cave, a covering, with the same connotations as Irish. Gothic is holster, to cover over. Helmet, Hilms, Helli, hell, Old English hell, cave, husk, pod, Sounds like an argument around the holidays. And Old Prussian, Ausklips, meaning hidden. The Old Church Slavonic is poklopu, meaning cover, wrapping. So there's this ancient Batavian doctrine of apocalypse, a Kent doctrine of, running out of workability, an Atlantis doctrine of running out of life expectancy, an Olympic doctrine of running out of time, running out of place, position, zone to be cured, to be saved, a topological doctrine of running out of time, a leading expect doctrine of the end of the world, a Hippocratic doctrine of the healer asked to be everything to everybody, and at his end becomes nothing, is set out to become diagnosing, consulting, treating outside his license, his vision, both. So these doctrine have a common source in the Rigidus basket of service, what the Batavian Medici Latin call the Ark of the Covenant, what Kent English call heaven, or the Celestine, what Atlantis American call the Holy Grail. These 7 apocalypse, these 7 sec, come to us from 7 different liturgies, 7 different linguistic traditions. Where for those that are Christian, looked at Coptic Greek, summary of these traditions, where Matthew, Mark, Michael, John said many of the same things because they were translated by Rigidus, by the Ark of the Covenant, by heaven, by Holy Grail, into a single language with settle, as we say, where there were qubits, as we say in physics, where there's entropies connected to the Holy Grail. Chaos is a good word. Kel is another good word. Where these co-occur, where you see slight differences in translation from different prophets, which shows that that's part of the mechanism of the Rigidus basket of services. And that method of having things repeated slightly different is not intention, but it's a symptom. If you think of the Baconian method of that chaos is one of those qubits. It's some of the information that flows out of the Holy Grail. So these Testament we read of, or doctrine, summarizing 103 Good Shepherd traditions, Good Doctor traditions, into a single document. History is filled with stories of individuals running out of time, coming to the end of the world, shadow of worlds, and end of world. History does not always include those heroes that explored more upon being confronted with the Rigidus, those that explored more at the Ark of the Covenant, those that explored more upon confronting heaven, those that explored more upon confronting the Celestine, those that explored more in the Holy Grail, where you see individuals like Bauta, who's traveled 4 times further than Marco Polo, and describes having heard Muhammad and Jesus Christ, both. And those are the remarkable stories. Exploring more is one of those qubits. It's one of those things where when you see explorers are individuals that tend to have very long periods of time on a Holy Grail. It is qualitatively different than some of the other archetypes, if you will. The legend of the Batavian, the legend of Sir Henry Vane, of Sir Edward Spalding, is an old tradition, Hippocrates, the matter of the horse, where they said that America could have an empire of horses. And having that said on the Holy Grail is qualitatively different than someone else writing it or wishing it or wanting it. It became true in an old tradition. And it happens to be incredibly important. Before 1910, there were 103 good doctor traditions, 103 good shepherd traditions, where they collapsed into 2 medical sects, medical doctor and osteopath. And they're exceptional medical sects, but there were other ones. Atlantis American is a chivalric order prioritizing life expectancy first medicine that exists in those traditions, that frees physicians from being everything to everybody, and can be life expectancy first medicine, which is really important. As a third option to physicians to be able to prioritize their Hippocratic oath in a way that functions more like life insurance, in a way that functions more like malpractice insurance, in a way that puts life expectancy first above the Trojan horse of defensive medicine, the Trojan horse, the furtive fallacy that somehow there's bad doctors, the fault that falsely prioritizes that there's bad American physicians out there. It's not bad physicians, there's bad oaths. Physicians have been asked to be everything to everybody, and they end up being nothing to everybody. And so they're able to join us in the movement of Atlantis American and reprioritize their oath as life expectancy first. That's something that Americans already buy in their life insurance policies, and they don't even have a physician that's involved in guaranteeing the goods. And that's something we believe at Atlantis American that physicians are worthy of, being life expectancy first. I became troubled by life expectancy not growing one directionally, non-reversibly. In fact, the last 10 years, life expectancy in America has decreased. And so I became very passionate about exploring those 103 good doctor traditions and seeing what things can be changed. And one of them is providing life expectancy first medicine through Atlantis American, which is, a new doctrine built on an old tradition. Built on America having been developed by knights, which is an exceptional story. And I elaborate on the tenets of Atlantis American in my ebook, Perfecting the Brand American Medicine, which is at my website, profi.me. And so for those of you that are in medicine, where do you go to for hope? It's simple that there's two directions. There's toward the Hippocratic tradition itself, prioritizing your Hippocratic oath, or towards advanced physics. I raced in both directions in my passion for chivalry, for Hippocrates, for superior in horses, for my passion for classical relativity, for Kyrios Relativity, for physics. The first direction, Hippocrates, leads us towards the origin of chivalry, of all that is good and true and right and exciting in the ancient Jagvedic people, of horse shepherds, of good shepherding, and great shepherding. Jagvedic is the language of the shepherd that domesticated the horse. It's also the anatomy. Today it's the language of the liturgy. It's the origin of Hippocrates. There's reason to believe that a grail existed for a species of horse, of birds, of blue whales, and us Homo sapien as well. Part of the tradition of shepherding comes from those holy grails sometimes transferring from the animal to the shepherd, which is perhaps a rather straightforward thing. That many of the animals we domesticated were shorter than us, which is some of the Jagvedic tradition. There's a nomenclature acquisition device for stage 2 life, something I elaborate in my other writing. It's wholly compatible with Noam Chomsky's language acquisition device. Something that sophisticated readers have believed or entertained for some time, since 1957. One of the more thoughtful ideas on it, one of the more important ideas. And that idea is that language acquisition didn't occur through just a bunch of mimicry or mutations, and that kind of anatomy, language need to be developed simultaneously. That's the work of the Regulus basket of services in this nomenclature acquisition device. Stage 2 life has not developed language. Stage 1 life often has many chromosomes than predicted. We would have expected stage 1 life to have so many fewer chromosomes than stage 2 life. Yet stage 1 life is filled with chromosomes. The story of chivalry brings us hope, where despite the apocalyptic tradition, the matter of the horse is, American anthropology is, the horse is actually American. The horse is from here. The horse is ours. The hunters that came to America tens of thousands of years ago hunted the horse to extinction, along with 30 other megafauna. The relatives of those horses escaped a diaspora out the same Bering land bridge into Siberia and on down the steppes of Europe, crying and wailing into the outstretched hand of the first knight, where he turned her face to the sun in the story and said, "What did they do to you, girl?" That was the moment that the Hippocratic Oath was born. If you could care for a horse, such a large and valuable work animal, you could care for Homo sapien. You'd be better at caring for Homo sapien if you could care for a horse. That shepherd and his descendants determined who would have an empire of horses, who could have one, and who could have none. That people had beliefs and a language and a code of honor that we describe as the golden rule, stylized as superior in horses. The knight's code of honor. There are other parables about what the first knight said. I elaborate on that in some of my other reading. That's the tradition, including that this horse can work for me. This equos, that's a Jagfetic word for the horse. It was equos. That's how it's very close to pre-1905 Lithuanian, where that's a horse shepherd language. Equos happens to be one of those ways that that's one of the horse shepherd tribes. We don't just know linguistically. There's a lot of horses that are from Lithuanian places, Lithuanian-style places. And again, it's tens of thousands of years. There's great tradition, in France, in the Netherlands as well, of horse-owning people. Lots of evidence of it. And I elaborate on that in a lot of my other writing. But see, physics, leads us in this other direction at the apex of physics, for which resulted in my own study of, Einstein, where I've published my own Kyrios Relativity, which includes Collatus Relativity, Validoral Relativity, and Centry Relativity, which is a pretty sophisticated attempt at a unified theory of physics that's irreducible, falsifiable, and non-homuncular, and showing multiple errors by Minkowski and Albert Einstein. There are important findings there. The idea that you can have in a single body of knowledge be brought closer to the good doctor, good shepherd tradition, also towards high physics. I think it's so useful for large numbers of people, and that's why I'm so motivated to share it. In that Atlantis American tradition, in the tradition of Sir Henry Vane, as the Christ English, who died at was held in the Tower of London and killed by his own people, died for the sins of English, which is that's one of the matters that are shared in Testament, where you don't always have a king like Sir Henry Vane, but unifying in a single author, high physics. I think can be so useful for individuals like physicians that are so smart and are trying to find meaning and purpose in their work. And that's the passion in my life. So there's an emotive topology, which is in our Atlantis 1, that includes a mark of quality in people in the form of trust, patience, gratitude. This emotive topology includes your own mark of quality for you in your personal and professional life, and brand perfection. That includes the brand destroying emotions, the decreased value for companies, especially healthcare, your professional life, your personal life, and also those that create brand emotions. Like brand destroying emotion, it's a harsh word. See, it used to be way worse. Before chivalry, before the horse shepherds, before the first knight, there was not a language of social trust. There was not a language of social patience. Neither. There was not a language of perfecting emotions. The language created the meaning and the symbol of the word deru, D-E-R-U, which meant to be firm, to be steadfast. Where the breaking of the horse required it in trust, and where stead meant place, position of that horse, required it to be fast. The trustworthiness, the steadfastness of place, position, wasn't just required to be fast, but derives from the Jagfetic meaning past, as in the knight breaking the horse had to already be there, which is one of the important matters of ancient knights that you see percolating all the way into the mantra for the United States Marine Corps, Semper Fidelis. Always faithful, in a direct translation of it, well, we were already there. Wherever the horse was going, the knight was already there. Their language introduced the term of enderu, which starts looking familiar to you because it's found in the word endurance. Adding the word, the prefix en was from within, as in is within you. And deru, again, was to be firm, to be steadfast. Which endurance shepherd? Are you training the horse shepherd? Or is the horse training you? which is an ancient question. Well, are you? Which is an important tradition for any shepherd, is making sure you're training the herd rather than having the herd training you. And that's some of the ancient power of the emotive topology in 3 singing little syllables that changed the world forever for the better, from a quiet place position ascending up to shepherd. The question enduring, asked shepherd to shepherd, as the Batavians were, where they can be found, rock, stone, mountain, island, along the river valleys of Europe in classic Batavian-style apodiums, buried with their horses. Next to the castle, as the legend has it, with the Holy Grail buried with them. Are you enduring? The pirate ships coming up river, shepherd. Are you training the barbarian shepherd? Are the barbarians training you? Are you enduring? The question comes to shepherd's wife. You can imagine fighting, as again, one of the ancient matters of having civilized people. Of which the history of barbarism can be found in history, and it was the tradition of knights and kings, of Jagiellonian law that helped deter barbarians. Are you training the barbarians, or are they training you? And so Jagiellonian law is this tradition, of white knights on white horses fighting off barbarians, which is a lot of how our stories are. And it happens to be important because if you look back, in history and anthropologically, we were not always a chivalrous people. Chivalry traces back, though, to these horse shepherds, as does that Hippocratic oath that those of you that physicians are. And so, the shepherd's wife could, in a single word say, deru, enduring, the during. It comes from within shepherd, as in, are you enduring? Are you going to get those barbarians? Something that we recognize. So, like Batavian, means rock, stone, mountain, island. That happens to be the origin of my name in Latin, where we added, it was Batavi before that, an old continental like Jagfetic. And we added an A with the Conner systems. The Batavian Medici Latin traditions added an A. The other traditions did not add that A. The more traditional ending, meaning son of, LIS, was added. So, that's, the etymology of our name, though, rock, stone, mountain, island. These are, terms for management. In some traditions, it's the language of the king, of the kingdom. Certainly is in Hittite, in Jagfetic, in Lithuanian, or, they would see those words as, oh, you guys domesticated the horse. Your name means stirrup. It means saddle. It means chariot. That there are individuals that held royal court. Cases would be presented to the king for rulings for mercy or not. See, court was sometimes opulent. It was not always opulent. But court included the apodium, of which the apodium was that ancient castle, if you will. My ancestors built an apodium here on the Hudson River, which I elaborate on in my other writing. That apodium is called West Point, where that was built between Albany and New Amsterdam to cut off pirates in a classic Batavian-style way of cutting off barbarians. And that story helps everyday Americans understand that in your language and yourself, you have a language, maybe an anatomy in your own, shepherd traditions doing things. And see, things were worse once upon a time before we had that language of enduring, of during. And the strength and the truth is within you. It's within us. The Jagfetic king wrote that there were 7 signs, which the ancient Greeks called seals, which the Jagfetic people called sek, as in S-E-K, as in the sign to be cut, as in sekno. Basically, the sign don't cut, where sek meant sign, sekwo is in to follow, where sekwo meant the sign of the standard you follow is in a model. There are people, companies, healthcare employees, inquisitive without quest. Quest is a leading expect Rangan management tool. Quest is a leading expect management tool in the style of Rangan, with stone as an irreducible units of battle coming from Rangan, the tradition of knights that defended civilizations such as West Point. I talked about how exploring more is one of those qubits, of exploring more for better ways of doing things. Like Ibn Battuta explored more on foot, you can explore more of better ways of doing things, which is one of the ways that you can, succeed on a quest rather than merely being inquisitive. Being inquisitive without quest is one of those issues that you see in ancient parables that lead people farther down towards judgment and revelations. And so a lead and expect Rangan quest can be developed in a quest workout, empowering people whether it's patience, experience quest, throughput quest, roster quest, physician quest. Quest is a sacred word, is a mission. Then all the ways matched up with the hero's journey. Your hero's journey, which is the question behind the question, as other authors have called it contemporarily. Which is what are you asking of anybody else? Where the right answer is to explore more. Which is a primordial message of our divine Creator. The story of Devas coming to Jagfetic people, squires, pages becoming squires, squires becoming knights, knights becoming kings, to explain stone, as in how many stone build a house, how many, on a roster, care traffic control, for example, building a house on mathematical stone found in ancient scrolls, in factorial math, in the ancient tradition that so many shepherd traditions agree on. One stone builds one house. 2 stone builds 2 houses. 3 stone builds 6 houses. 4 stone builds 24 houses. It's the math. It's factorial math. It happens to be the science of, registration, the anointing of the sick. Call centers. It's incredibly important. It happens to be a sacrament, something that in America's healthcare system we don't recognize as a sacrament, where it's become a loveless, spiritless, soulless transaction that we here at Profi.me and at Atlantis American, we're striking back at some of more meaning and more hope, and that's helping people with the message of hope includes having quest rather than just being inquisitive. Instead of just asking questions, what quest are you on? There are people, companies, healthcare employees surprised without Gend, which is G-H-E-N-D. Gend is the second seal. The second sec is surprise without Gend. To seize, to take, as in surprise without seizing, as in taking without grasping. Gend is a chief expectations officer management tool for the closing of endpoints, for the accelerating engagements in 4 ways. Raft is in recognizing, acknowledging, framing, functioning, thanking, which I elaborate on in my book, Perfecting the Brand of American Medicine. It's an exceptional book in the Atlantis American tradition. On-stage performance of employees, doctors. Off-stage performance of employees, doctors. Performance management. Frontline leader development. The form of raft is in recognize, is incredibly powerful. Has worked with multiple groups. It's a useful acronym that employees can be reminded on. Gend is to seize, to take, as in like carpe, not just carpe diem as in seize the day, but because life is long, but as in seize the mission, seize the quest, seize Gend, over long blocks of time. To seize, to take long amounts of mission, and taking mission rather than inquisition. Gend is the grasping, the seizing, the gallantry in the face of blind spots for surprise, to remake those surprise for customers, for employees in the mission. Gend is heroes in ending, of under-engagement in mission. Gend is easement around obstacles. Gend is nativity, as in celebrate the birth of surprise, a feast of abundance out of the abyss. Gend is the triumphal return of the divine, by seizing by Gend in the face of surprise. Gend is done in ways that provide surprises, that provide cedo against sadness, and pre against fear. There are people, companies, healthcare employees sad in their results, not satiated, as in not ceto, which is that ancient Jagvedic word ceto, S-E-T-O. The third seal, the third sec, is sadness without ceto, without satiating, without satisfying, as in sadness, as in unhappy, sorrowful, melancholy, mournful. Ceto is a lead and expect Jagvedic management tool for satiated employees that are sad at their results, which is ceto. Satiated employees through recognition for work. Ceto is an acronym, satiating in the face of blind spots for sadness, and the worlding of any abyss of running out of time, transcending the facades of sadness and triumphantly returning to an oasis, where ceto is older than what's called haigi, where it means satiation in all the ways that keeps a person from being sad, being fearful. Ending the world is in the perception of sadness and consciously choosing gratitude, choosing satiation, of unfavorable emotions rather than clinging to them. There are people, companies, healthcare employees, fear in their results, not privy as in not pride. The love is in self-worth. The fourth seal, the fourth sec, is fear without pri, as in fear without love, fear without beloved, fear without friend, as in applied to the free members of a clan. Pri is a management tool of divisional priority beloved. A secret, as in privy, as in pri, as in the qualitative loves at the different levels that prevent fear in the beloved. Pri is a leading expect Jagvedic tool for helping pri employees, for freeing employees, from the bondage of fear. Fear works over only small periods of time. Pri is team development. Pri is a data-driven decision because, it takes emotion out of it, especially fear. Pri is physician relations issues, including physician recruitment. Pri is the solution to fear. It's all the qualitative, loves at work, including God's love. There are people, companies, healthcare employees that anger in the result, and not angst, as in not creative, a conner, impatient access strategies in care process redesign, in employer strategies, in ways to serve their customers, their clients better. A conter is a management philosophy of a defect reduction measurement system, as in D, which is DHE, as in to set, to put, from the Iron Age Jagvedic word D. A conter comes from the French system of accounting that built Paris. I elaborate on that in my other work that, the accounter systems are the more sophisticated high finance words that are so important for sophisticated organizations to embrace. High finance tends to use French words for the same reason. And so we're bringing the accounter systems back to the Atlantis American tradition with predicated on new medical sciences. Accounter is a leading expect Jagvedic castle management tool for helping a conter with redesign, with the unification of quality finance in units of Ule, with the unification of quality and finance castle in units of Ulis, meaning the kingdom. And that's an ancient word from Hittite. But the fifth seal, the fifth sec, is anger without angst, as in irritate without angst, of tightening up. A hostile attitude of distress without the angst of squeezing, of narrowing of options. The creative angst can help people choose their good options. So having anger without angst, without exploring more of the good options that are provided to them. There are people, companies, healthcare employees disgusted in the results, not goose, which is Geus, as in not taste making, as in not the human way of appraising qualities. And the management acronym we use, GOOSPECT. The sixth sign, the sixth sec, is disgust without goose, as in without to taste. Disgust without choosing. Disgust is in repugnance, escalating by something offensive, loathsome. Goose is a management tool, GOOSPECT, meaning goose is in taste making, meaning energy is in Kyrios Relativity, of my Kyrios Relativity, meaning units as in units of measure, meaning seconds as in units of time, including the Devos calendar, the new comedy, the new awakening, For example, the year 2000 glitch was a needless end-of-world event. There's another one in 2038 that can be averted by changing to a new calendar. And there are computational reasons for the calendar, especially compression of data, where the 2038 event is called the Epicopolis. Scientists, religions, governments agree that this DVOS calendar is needed, including, the Common Era, for example. Something anthropologists care about did not include the number 0. So, at the very beginning of the calendar, they counted 8, 9, 11. They missed the number 0. They missed the number 0, just like missing the number 10. I know we horse shepherds, we didn't do the Common Era calendar. The name Batu means 10, where the proof, of the number 0 originates, someone else made that error. But, you can see, Batami, is a numbering system, in a people and a language, out of the nation of Georgia. There's the Sumerian, Babylonian, Egyptian calendars, which were missing the number 0. There's this new DVOS calendar begins in 1980, the Common Era, with the number 0. As in, DVOS eras are reckoning, that benefits sciences, religions, non-governmental, governmental organizations. It provides an opportunity to have count back without having the same error, which is incredibly exciting. Systems of everyday life are reducible to energy, as in thermodynamic units such as temperature, electricity, chemical units such as mass. Energy is included in my system. And then, in Suspect, there's, in Guspect, the acronym, there's process, expectations, cycles, topologies. Nature is a process in a one-directional event, sometimes called steps, reference frame. A causes B, B causes C. Relationship. This draws from the Latin prosecus, meaning going forward. Latin is a cycle in a repeatable events reference frame to A causes B, B causes C, then C causes A again. Cycle comes from the Greek kylos, meaning cycle of events, circular motion, to revolve, to move around. Nature is a topology in a reversible event. And I reference Euler, who's an important individual in topology, where I often use the word bridge. Reference frame analogous, A causes B, B causes A. Topology comes from Greek topos, place, location, position. It happens to be incredibly important when you look at advanced physics. You start bumping into topologies where A causes B, B causes A. And that is when you know that you've hit, pay dirt in qubits. You've hit, irreducible units metaphysically that can be described in physics. Cycles with reversibility are not cycles. The passing both directions on a causal bridge is a mark of a topology. The Krebs cycle, also known as the citric acid cycle, is reversible steps, which means it's better described as Krebs topology. I elaborate on that in Chapter 2 of my book, Perfecting the Brand American Medicine, which people love that book. And I've written another whole book on metabolic topology, Cure First Medicine, which I find to be such an important medical sect, that was there. We had, the Louis Pasteur, Charles Louis Napoleon Bonaparte III, who invented pasteurization, and we had a Cure First medical sect, and we lost that during the Cold War. And so we choose to revisit that in a new medical sect, not, Atlantis American, but, metabolic topology. And we offer the option for physicians to make the choice to become ordained in metabolic topology, to become ordained in Atlantis American, which we think is such an important part of the healing ministry, is to mobilize the good doctor traditions and dust them off, the good doctor traditions that we lost during the Cold War. Healthcare management has been distracted by process thinking, which I elaborate on in Chapter 7. chapter 12 of my book, Perfecting the Brand of American Medicine. Literally the best book written on American healthcare. I have the slightest bias. I published it and I wrote it. There's a picture of the book, Perfecting the Brand of American Medicine. In medical science, we know that the mysteries of the universe include qualitatively different kinds of complexity: process, expectations, cycles, topologies. And so I elaborate on that as an acronym. Goosespect, which we talked about here, and in the book I talk about it as suspect, where goose comes from the ancient word to choose, where suspect is system. It's more scientific thinking. There are people, companies, healthcare employees, contempt in their emotions, contempt in the results, where there is courage and there is stupidity in contempt. There is being bright, using contempt with courage, and there is contempt with stupidity. There are people, companies, healthcare employees, bright in the results, courageous in the results, in rebounding and turning around. We're the tribe that hunted the panther. We Homo sapiens are. The seventh sign, the seventh sec, is contempt without being bright, as in mistaking courage with stupidity. There is a kind of courage with contempt, where a warrior raced into conflict that is qualitatively different from stupidity with contempt. Stupidity is open disregard without being bright, disobedience to authority in stupid ways. For example, it is stupid to, run from the panther, where the panthers were, too stupid to know what to eat. They eat what runs from it. That's how they know what they're supposed to eat. Homo sapiens had the instinct to run from panthers. We shepherds, we Jagfetic knights, we kings, we trained our pages, our squires, and knights to prepare, as in, to have contempt, against the panther, to race into the panther. Where Divas raced into the panther, our story is of a David that raced into the panther and smote him. Of Divas who came and drew nigh and smote the panther, smote Goliath. And Divas can smote all the obstacles, as in the baldness knight. Divas came and drew nigh and hastened into Goliath. Where the baldness knight, Divas means to shine, flash, burn, shining, lightning. Described in various traditions as the knight in shining armor, to fix everything at the last minute. Also described as Perconus, is the Jagfetic god of lightning, who strikes first, who strikes hard, who came and drew nigh and hastened into Goliath, smote it, lit up, gone. And this is so important, where that seventh sec is the seventh seal of the Confessaconter system in Atlantis, America. We find that it's so useful in helping very smart physicians explore new options, explore new ordination, explore new medical sects, and our hospitals and physician groups and physicians that we work with have been incredibly happy with their work with us in the Confessaconter, and we hope that you try it out with us. We have our Atlantis 1, 2, and 3, which are personality assessments of chivalry, chivalry of the soul, chivalry of biology, and both. And so we invite you all to join us at profi.me in the Atlantis American tab, and join us in this exciting new tradition of life expectancy first medicine. It's more important today than it's ever been. There's over 300 physicians that commit suicide every single year. These are people that are trained to be healers. We need to do something better. And I am certain that the Confessaconter system is the thing that your hospital, your clinic needs to embrace. And we elaborate on the options in Perfecting the Brand of American Medicine, my ebook, which again we encourage you to join us in the mission, the ebook, and the movement, Perfecting the Brand of American Medicine.